Veterans Day is a time that we celebrate and honor the military veterans that served in our United States Armed Forces. We're proud of those that have served and answered the call to protect our freedoms both here at home and around the globe. Today we're going to speak with two of our veterans and let them share their stories. What impacted their lives and why did they serve? Join me. Well, today we're going to be talking with Bill Lewis. Bill is a longtime Fellowship Church member of the Greenwood campus. He's an attorney here in town. And so we're just going to have a little chat with him about his military background and how he got started in the military and what he's been doing since he got out. So welcome, Bill. Glad to have you today.
Thank you.
All right. Well, we, as you know, we were developing this project for our Veterans Day presentation. And I wanted to just touch base with a couple of our veterans to just highlight them and their service to our country. And first of all, thank you for your service. We appreciate what you've done for us since then as well. And so I'd just like to talk to you for a little bit. And
I'm happy to do it.
Well, I appreciate it. Now, I sent you some questions. You are kind of looked over those already. And so one of the first things I'm going to ask you is, how long did you serve and where did you serve?
I served 3 years active duty, and then I served 3 years inactive. I served in the Transportation Corps. I had the idea that I wanted to be a helicopter pilot. Next thing I know, I'm on the B&O Railroad as a railroad clerk in the middle of winter in Baltimore. It was not exactly what I anticipated.
Not quite the helicopter pilot scenario you were looking for.
When I told the people at Fort Eustis, Virginia, that I'm supposed to be, they said, you're going to be assigned in the railroad battalion. I said, no, I'm supposed to be a helicopter pilot. And they just laughed. And I couldn't understand why they were laughing. I thought they were serious about letting me do that, but I was just a 17-year-old kid.
What did you do after that? Where else did you serve? What else did you do in the military?
Well, I was in a transportation unit, and I did go to Europe. Went to Germany, and was in a transportation unit there. So they had a position open up in the supply, and the supply guy got a deuce-and-a-half truck that had a heater in the back where all the parts were. And that's where I slept while the other guys were out on the ground freezing their tails off. And so a supply clerk was a pretty good position in the unit. Cool.
And then you had something down here as a driver for a general?
Yeah.
What does that entail?
In that unit, and we were in Frankfurt, Germany, 5th headquarters, 5th Corps Army headquarters, and a position opened up. They needed a driver for one of the generals, and I was in supply and was on good graces with the company commander and so forth, and so I took the job, and that was kind of fun because you got to drive that big old Imperial Chrysler with the flag waving on front, a general, going down the Autobahn, and we went to all the different towns in Germany, and it was a good part of the stay in Germany.
So, as you were growing up, you grew up in this small town. You decided to enlist in the military, U.S. Army, correct?
Right.
U.S. Army. How did your family feel about that? Were they supportive?
Well, interesting on talking about family. My parents were married and divorced, remarried and redivorced. And so we ended up, my siblings and I, they went to foster care, and I went to the Missouri Baptist Children's Home in what was then called Pattonville, which is now, I think, Bridgeton, Missouri, on Fifi Road. Some people may have been there. It was the kind of deal that when we drove up there in those days, the sign out front said Missouri Baptist Orphans Home. And I came in there about 11 o'clock at night, and you can imagine how you would feel. The headlights hit that sign when we were driving up the circular drive, and I thought, here I am, like 9 years old, and I'm in an orphan's home. It was hard to believe, but it actually turns out that 2.5 years was one of the most stable periods of my life, for which I'm still very grateful for that time. Eventually, I was returned to my mother's house, and that didn't work out too well. So I ended up with my father. That didn't work out too well. And my grandmother actually raised me during my high school years in Glencoe, Missouri.
In Glencoe. In your lifetime, did your faith in Christ impact your military, your education career, or was that in play during those times? Where did your faith come into play during your careers?
Back in Glencoe, when I lived with my grandmother, she was a devout Christian. And we went to a little tiny church, Church of God in Glencoe. While there as a young adolescent, I accepted Christ, was baptized in the Merrimack River, and even in high school, I don't know why, but I always had the ability not necessarily to follow the wrong crowd. I could just say, well, you guys go ahead and go that way, but I've got something else I got to do. Again, looking back, I think it was the Lord kind of protected me.
Sure.
And so as time went on, in your high school age, you begin to question everything, and you're not sure if God created you or we created him, because we couldn't answer all the questions of life. And so, like a lot of people, I just kind of drifted for a while spiritually. And then in college, about the same thing. But I always went to church on Sunday.
Yeah.
It was just something that drew me back to that all. I've always really desired just to serve the Lord, even in times when I was just drifting.
Yeah.
I was always brought back to that. And then there came a point in your life, even in law school, I was walking down the hall one day with a big old burly guy with a big beard. And I said the name Jesus. I said something about, well, it wasn't until I gave my life to Jesus that seemed like a lot of the things evaporated, all the problems of life. Not that you didn't have any, but you were okay. You could handle it. You and Jesus. We stood there in the hallway between classes. I was supposed to be in class for an hour. And he finally looked at me and he said, I guess we ought to go to class. I said, yeah, I guess so. And he said, Bill, he says, I've enjoyed talking to you. I don't believe as you do. But he said, I wish I did.
It's quite an impact.
And I knew more about what he did the rest of his life, but he's now gone. But that was powerful that he wished he did believe.
Yeah. Well, I think we can all hope that we have that impact on unbelievers around us. We may not always see what the outcome is going to be, but once we can start that conversation, at least that seed is planted. And
yeah, somebody planted it with me.
Sure. Well, Bill, that's all that I have. I first of all, I want to thank you for your service to our country again. Even though it wasn't a long career in the military, it's still important that you've felt obligated to serve, and we appreciate that. Also want to thank you for your service to the church and all that you do here. You and Carol, I know you're both very active in the different ministries here at Fellowship Church. And it's been a pleasure being your friend. Well, Bill, thank you for your time. Thanks for sitting down with me today, and I appreciate you.
It's been my pleasure.
And we'll see you on Sunday.
And we love the Greenwood Church.
We love the Greenwood Church and the Raymore.
Anyway, well, yeah,
campus.
right. We're expanding, and God bless us.
Yeah, things are happening. Things are good.
Thank you.
All right. Well, today we're here with Art Hoffman. He is one of our veterans from the Raymore campus, and we want to thank him for his time to come in and just share a little bit about his life and his military background, his military service, and share a little bit about himself. And so, are you good? You ready to go?
I guess.
Okay.
I'm gonna be, I think.
Tell us, Art, a little bit about your family. Where did you grow up? What was your family background?
I was born in Brooklyn, New York, and I guess we lived there for several years and then moved out to Long Island. And when I graduated from high school and stuff, they were having a big push on at that time where we go to the movie once in a while. And they always had it in there where they wanted to encourage people to join the military and stuff. Mm-hmm. And so I didn't have any other plans, and they had a buddy system. The buddy system was that you would go in with your buddy in the basic training and everything from there. And we went to basic training, and we never saw each other again. One went one way, one went the other way, and you had no say to where you went. But I was able to go over the road to Spain, and I spent 2 years over there. And that was really interesting, learning the language. We were only a stone's throw from the Mediterranean where it opened. The sand was beautiful, the water was great, the swimming was good.
Now, your job in the service was in security, is that right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And tell me a little bit about that.
Well, when we were over in Spain, over in Rota, that was our duty up there. We had 2 different platoons. One would be on for a week and then be off, and then the other one would be on. And you would have the responsibility, groups of you being, they had the naval magazine there that they had to protect with all the big bombs and stuff in there. And the base itself had to be protected, and even in where they had the what they call them, the bunkers, where a lot of the ammunition and stuff was. In there they had a tower that when you pulled guard duty out there, you'd have to climb the tower, and you'd stand up in the top, and you had good sight of and view of the whole area there. And after a while, I got they had a roving patrol. Instead of being up there, I got in the Jeep, and I was able to, drive around and kind of, just kind of keep track of things. We never had any problems, though. And then when I came back to the United States and to finish up my tour and stuff, I went to another base. And there I was had my own platoon and stuff. Of course, I had been promoted a few times. And we were always running, I guess, missions, if you will. And one time we wound up in the swamp, and we had to stay overnight. And it was just miserable. We had water up to our ankles and above, and you just couldn't sleep. So I had sat on a stump, and I had leaned my back up against the tree, and I was trying to get some sleep. Well, I did sleep, but a lot of chiggers went on my back. And my back was swollen twice the size it was. And then they had to keep putting salve on my back to smother them, so they would at least die. I'm thinking, gee, well, how are these things going to get out? They're dead, But it all worked out. And I don't know. It was still part of the whole thing, I think.
Now, you said that you were also in charge of the brig for a while.
Mm-hmm.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Any interesting characters in the brig while you were in charge of that?
Yeah, most of them were had been naval people that that's what the whole base was, basically. And occasionally they'd be downtown over drinking and stuff, and then they'd come in, and when they came in, if they had a bow tie, a tie or something on from being downtown, they had to take that off because we didn't want him choking himself. And I had one guy that just refused to take it off, so I had to take it off for him. And he didn't like that, but that worked out okay. But he was so ornery, we had to put him in a padded cell for a while to let him, let the alcohol, I guess, disappear. And then he finally settled down and stuff. So yeah, that was good. And then we moved out to Colorado, and I put in an application for a job, and it was really difficult to get jobs at that time too. But it wasn't too awfully long, and they called me in for an interview, and then shortly after that they offered me a job. And I really enjoyed the work there. The people were nice. That's where they did the printing, if you will, of the rollers and all that stuff, and set things up for different companies that want to print their stuff, like Hershey chocolate, and I don't know, just a whole bunch of companies that wanted to have, printable stuff. And so that all worked out good too. I mean, God, this was so good. And I had to learn how to take, they had a big, huge room where it was a dark room, and then out in front of that was a camera. It was so big, it was on slides. And so you'd have to get all your stuff on it and then bring it in, focus it, and then take pictures and develop them, and then try to make them be printable, if you will, when we tried to transfer them onto plates. So, I just was able to do or learn a lot of stuff that I really enjoyed doing.
So it sounds very technical. That's pretty neat.
Yeah, it was. It was very nice. You just want to make sure the acid didn't get in your eyes.
Throughout your service and your career, did your service and career impact your faith at all, or did your faith impact your service and career? Were those kind of separate areas of your life?
Yeah, I don't think that there was an awful lot of intermingling, if you will, except if I was, meeting people or stuff like that, and I had an opportunity to witness to them, then that was always a positive thing, because I would like to try to think that my life was what they saw, and I don't know, it's just hard, but it's just, God's been good. I don't know what else to say.
Good deal, good deal. Well, after you were in the Marine Corps, did your career through IBM and Moss Type and maybe some other places, you retired, and is that what brought you to Raymore area?
Yeah, our daughter was out here, and so we moved out to be out here with them, and that was a blessing. We just enjoy them. We're with the grandchildren constantly. We go camping together. Life is just really good. Good.
That's all the questions that I have. I so appreciate getting to know you and Bev. The last couple of years since the campuses have joined together, there's a lot of great people at both campuses. There's just so much to learn from our older generations, and what I really want to encourage our younger generations to do is to seek out some of our senior adults and learn from them and listen to the stories. You got some great stories, and this church for all generations is a lot of fun too. And so it's people like you and Bev and some of the other folks that we're going to talk to that bring that history to life and be able to share wisdom and knowledge with everybody else in the church. And we just appreciate you being able to sit down with us today and just share a part of your life with us.
Well, thank you. I appreciate the opportunity.
We love it. We love it. Thank you.
Okay.
Not everyone who serves in our military branches see combat, but their roles are vital just the same. It takes a lot of commitment and moving parts to keep ships at sea, planes in the air, and boots on the ground. Here are some of the names you might know. Art Hoffman, serving in the United States Marine Corps, 1960 to 1966. Security. David Baldwin, proudly serving in the United States Air Force from 1969 to 1973. Electronics technician. David Bolton, served in the United States Air Force from 1974 to 1994. Jet engine mechanic. Dean Vanderwall, United States Marine Corps, serving from 1982 to 1989. Computer programmer. Dr. Harold Finch, proudly serving in the United States Air Force from 1957 to 1969. Technical intelligence. Jim Eccles, serving in the United States Army from 1961 to 1964. Aircraft communications. Leo Salazar, United States Army, 1959 to 1963. Tank driver, 4th Armored Division. Marilyn Tedrow, United States Air Force, serving from 1968 to 1971. Medic. Rick Ford, United States Marines, 1958 to 1962. Supply and Armory Secretary. Richard Simcox, United States Navy, serving from 1965 to 1968. Electronics Technician. Ron Burton, United States Air Force, serving from 1951 to 1955. Weapons Repair Technician and Air Police. Ron Warland, proudly serving in the United States Army from 1963 to 1965. Communications. Bill Lewis, United States Army from 1966 to 1969. Transportation Clerk and General's Staff Driver. Some of our veterans chose not to be recognized for their time in the armed services, but we continue to honor and appreciate the commitment you have provided to this great nation. Thank you all for your service and dedication to the United States and the world. May God richly bless you, your families, and God bless America.